Incredible caregiver discovers 20-year-old secret, the elderly woman she loved was a CEO's mother. Sarah's hands trembled as she poured the morning coffee, the familiar aroma of brewed beans unable to soothe her racing heart. She glanced up at Edna, perched by the window, nostalgia etched in her wise old face. A witching hour approached. Eric, that polished stranger from Chicago, had stepped into their sanctuary, and the world was about to shift beneath her. What if he unearthed Edna's hidden past? What if he discovered her corporate legacy? As a caregiver, nurturing Edna was her life's work, yet deep down, ambition flickered a yearning for nursing school that always lingered, overshadowed by bills and responsibilities. When Eric showed up amidst a flurry of questions, Sarah felt the encroaching storm of anxiety. He was not just any visitor, he was a corporate executive with commanding authority, a world apart from the nursing home's tranquility. They exchanged polite smiles, but the room buzzed with unspoken tension. Who was she now, a caregiver seeking her place, and why did the prospect of revealing Edna's history terrify her? The energy shifted as Eric uncovered photographs. There was Edna's radiant smile gracing a company party decades ago, as if she had emerged from another life. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Each interaction with Eric was a tightrope walk. He was drawn to Sarah, and she to him, yet she sensed a looming reckoning. How could she face this man, possibly the bridge between Edna's estrangement and the family that might suffer from her hidden identity? The fears clawed at her, embracing that light would crack the foundation of trust she had built with Edna. Yet, life as a caregiver had its limitations, and the temptation to utilize Edna's history for her dreams was seductive. If only she could find a way to preserve Edna's dignity while also lifting herself out of the shadows. Sarah felt the dichotomy boil within her. Should she risk exposing Edna's secret? How could she betray that priceless bond for her own aspirations? Each step toward Eric ignited the battle within. Would unveiling Edna's legacy bring healing or destruction? An unbidden thought flickered: ambition comes at a cost. Engulfed in turmoil, Sarah's breathing quickened. What if by confronting this legacy, she would slice through the tender threads of affection and respect she had carefully woven with Edna? Eric, oblivious to the storm brewing within Sarah, felt his emotions shift. Each layer of their interactions cut deeper. He questioned his own perception of success and the family he had distanced himself from. As he stood there, a stranger revealed in the light of shocking discovery, he wrestled with waves of loyalty and regret. Perhaps his mother was not the villain in his story. Could he grasp what was slipping away? A chance at reconciliation tangled in the vines of corporate politics. With every passing moment, the web of secrets tightened around Sarah. The stakes swelled painfully high. In that raw space of heart-wrenching tension, she stood on the precipice of change, breathless, awaiting a choice that could alter everything. Would she reveal Edna's history and chase her dreams while risking their irreplaceable bond? Or would she bury her ambitions to keep their cherished, albeit fragile connection intact? The answer loomed ominously, with both paths feeling like a betrayal under the watchful gaze of autumn leaves spinning down towards the ground. Sarah's mind reeled as she watched Eric sift through the photographs, his deep-set eyes widening with each revelation. The moment felt surreal. Here they were, two strangers caught in an old woman's tangled web of history, yet it was so much more than the past. It was about potential futures. Her own dream of nursing school loomed ever larger, pressuring her to make a choice that felt monumental but frightening. As the silence grew awkward, Sarah shifted her weight between her feet, her internal conflict battling for dominance. Does she protect Edna or pursue the life she had always yearned for? Eric looked up, his brow furrowing slightly. "You don't have to hide anything from me," he said, sincerity threading through his voice. "I know my mother, and she deserves to be remembered in her full light." His words pierced Sarah's heart, they resonated with an unspeakable truth. Edna was not merely a caregiver's charge, but a formidable woman who had once charted her own course in a harsh business world. Yet, the guise of Edna's faded past also shrouded the fears Sarah clung to, fears of inadequacy, instability, and the solitude of life's hard choices. A sudden notion sparked. What if the revelation of Edna's past could serve as a springboard rather than an ending? What if Eric could help her navigate this tumultuous world, assisting in her ambitions instead of competing with them? There was so much potential in the unknown, so many things left unspoken. Only then did a new resolve kindle within her, a flicker of determination to forge a path that honors both Edna and herself. "We can't ignore her legacy," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt. "But I want to protect her." Eric nodded slowly, openly assessing her. "Then let us do this together. Let us ensure she is honored, alive in the present as she was in the past." With shared clarity of purpose, the two began to explore ways to intertwine Edna's legacy with Sarah's aspirations. Over the next few weeks, tentative partnerships formed, meetings with local community centers and nursing associations. Edna's experiences would not only foster healing, they could inspire others. As Sarah began to champion Edna's story, the nursing school application loomed in the background, the deadlines pressing like a clock ticking away. Yet, each day that passed ignited renewed vigor within Sarah, drawing her out of the shadows of caregiving into the light of autonomy. In these moments of development, little details emerged that revealed her natural leadership, organizing events, rallying support from fellow caregivers, inviting speakers who could highlight the complexities of elder care. Sarah found herself in command of her narrative. She wasn't just a caregiver attached to her patient's fate. She was a bridge, but as she stood on the cusp of this hybrid identity, deeper motivations began surfacing. Was Eric's attention to her genuinely professional, or was there something more? Even as their professional partnership flourished, her heart grew heavier with hidden questions. What would happen when all the cards were laid bare? Each night, Sarah mulled over the looming confrontation that would come with revealing Edna's past to her family, an eventuality she couldn't escape. Would they welcome the light of information, or would it fracture the delicate bonds formed in newfound trust? With mounting anticipation, Sarah realized the moment of truth was drawing near. Things couldn't remain in a tangled web forever, the past had to be confronted. She had prepared herself for the external confrontation with new allies, but what about the internal reckoning that came with her ambitions? The day of revelation loomed ahead, pressing against her like a silent tide, ready to engulf everything she had built. Would she step forward, or would she pull back into the safety of shadows? Just as she was ready to embed herself into the narrative of both Edna and her burgeoning career, a message pinged her phone, an invitation to meet with Eric's family. Luminescent possibilities swirled in her mind, yet an icy tendril of uncertainty wrapped around her heart. Now it was time to face what lay on the other side. What hidden truths awaited her in that room? The invitation had arrived just as the day had begun to fade, a gentle yet insistent reminder that tomorrow was no ordinary day. The thought of meeting Eric's family ignited both apprehension and a flicker of excitement within Sarah. There was an air of finality about it, a crossing of a threshold she could no longer avoid. This wasn't just about Edna's past, it was about Sarah's burgeoning identity as well. In her small apartment, illuminated by the soft glow of evening light, Sarah paced. She rehearsed her words, mentally parsing the delicate balance of honesty and tenderness she would require. Would they be receptive to Edna's legacy, or would they resist the complexities she intended to introduce? As the uncertainty gnawed at her, a deeper realization hit her. Just as she had begun to weave Edna's story into her own, she needed to prepare to uphold her own narrative, yet, as she set about crafting the speech she would deliver, she found herself hesitating. What if Eric's family viewed Edna as merely a shadow of their own history? The possibility felt both daunting and exhilarating. Did she intend to dismantle the family's perceptions, or could she project strength in a way that reinforced their collective bond? With each passing hour, her resolve solidified. This wasn't simply about revealing Edna's legacy to Eric's family, it was an opportunity for Sarah to assert her own aspirations and acknowledge the journey she had taken to get to this moment. The simple act of preparing her speech was transforming into a profound exercise in affirming her own growth. In the days leading up to the meeting, small bursts of inspiration would ignite as she connected more deeply with Edna's narrative. She pulled from her own experiences in the nursing field encounters with patients that mirrored Edna's struggles in a corporate world long gone. Sarah understood intimately the weight of dignity, both in elder care and the context of professional ambition. She jotted down anecdotes, weaving them into a tapestry that showcased not just Edna as a person, but the broader implications of her life story. The night before the meeting, Sarah's mind raced with possibilities. She envisioned her interaction with each family member, the warmth of acceptance, the surprise in their eyes, or the resistance that could lead to confrontation. An undeniable reality settled over her. This was a significant turning point. The fear of rejection might linger, but so too did a growing sense of empowerment. As she lay awake, the room steeped in shadows, she questioned her motivations. Was she seeking to validate Edna's legacy for the sake of her own aspirations, or was she driven by a genuine desire to honor the woman who had shaped so much of her life? The lines seemed blurred, but in that confusion, she found clarity. Recognizing how entwined their fates had become, her ambitions lifting Edna's story, while Edna's struggles shaped Sarah's resolve, was a liberation in itself. Finally, the day dawned bright with promise. Sarah dressed not in the typical caregiver attire but in a smart, professional outfit that proudly reflected her evolving identity. She practiced her speech one last time in the mirror, intent on maintaining her poised resolve. As she stepped onto the threshold of Eric's family home, an unshakable sense of purpose surged through her veins. Whatever truths lay in the room ahead, she would confront them head-on. There was no room for retreat. She was prepared to navigate the complexities, armed with the potential of Edna's past and the ambitions of her own future. The door swung open to a house filled with family. Before she could take a deep breath, Sarah felt an energy that could either thaw her uncertainty or solidify it. It would be in this moment that she would discover if her truth could coexist with theirs, or if the weight of Edna's legacy would be too much to bear. As they gathered, Sarah caught sight of Eric in the corner, a mix of encouragement and apprehension etched on his features. It was his presence that bolstered her spirits, grounding her in the moment. Just as she opened her mouth to speak, however, an unexpected voice broke the tension, calling out from the staircase, shattering the fragile calm. Wait. I have something to share, too. The path forward had suddenly become far less predictable. What would this revelation mean for Sarah and her journey? The voice echoed in the room, a sudden disruption that sent a ripple of confusion through the gathered family. Sarah's heart raced as she turned her attention toward the staircase. The figure looming there, an unfamiliar young man, seemed as startled as she felt. His presence cast a new shadow over the moment she had carefully prepared for, shifting focus away from Edna's legacy and onto an unpredictable variable. Who are you? Someone in the room asked, breaking the stunned silence. I'm Jamie, Eric's cousin, the young man replied, his voice steady but laced with urgency. I just found out some things about Grandma Edna, things that might change everything. With that simple assertion, the air in the room thickened. All eyes shifted between Jamie, Sarah, and Eric. Sarah felt the weight of the moment press down on her chest. Her carefully curated narrative clashed with this unexpected revelation. She had been poised to reveal how Edna's life shaped her, to fuse their stories into a blossoming identity for herself, and now this young man's claim threatened to unravel it all. Yet, the tension within her morphed into a determination not to let this derail her vision. Wait, she said, her voice firmer than she initially felt. What do you mean by that, Jamie? What do you know? This was not the showdown she had anticipated, but perhaps it was an opportunity for greater authenticity. If Jamie had knowledge of Edna's past, it might enrich the tapestry she was already weaving, or it could force her to confront aspects she hadn't considered. I was going through some of Grandma's old things, Jamie began, running a hand through his hair as he stepped down the staircase. And I found correspondence and documents indicating she was involved in some major business ventures in her youth. I had no idea she was a pivotal figure in the corporate world. You're not the only one who had an interest in her legacy. As Jamie spoke, the family reacted. Shocked murmurs rippled through the crowd, and Sarah could feel the judgment hanging in the air. Would they see Edna as a businesswoman, or simply a relative whose stories had been muted by familial history? Taking a deep breath, Sarah decided to seize this moment. It was no longer just about Edna, it was a chance to confront and dispel the myths layered around her memory. I believe Edna's story deserves to be shared fully, not just the glowing accolades of her accomplishments or the struggles she faced, but everything in between, she asserted, looking directly at those present. It seems we all have pieces to share that can illuminate who she truly was. The family's expressions shifted. Curiosity emerged alongside the initial shock. The room felt charged with a shared desire to understand. They were no longer just spectators to her presentation, but participants in a collective exploration of Edna's identity. Maybe we should all share what we know, Eric said, glancing at Sarah with newfound respect. We can piece together what she meant to each of us and how to honor her legacy together. In that moment, Sarah felt herself step beyond the role of a caregiver, beyond simply confronting the family's perceptions. She was now an active participant in this unveiling, the retelling of a narrative that had the potential to unite them. The hesitations that plagued her melted away, replaced by a vibrant sense of collaboration. As Jamie relayed stories he had uncovered and the family began to exchange their recollections, Sarah felt a shift within herself. Here, battered expectations and fears started to transform into a fervent energy. Together, they were crafting something beautiful, a more profound homage to Edna. In the midst of their discussion, an idea crystallized in Sarah's mind. Maybe we should document these stories. Preserve them for future generations. After all, Edna was so much more than just our relative, she was a force in the world. The family nodded, and for the first time, the gatherings felt less like a burden. The future possibilities were grand and ripe with potential, but as the meeting progressed, a lingering doubt clung to Sarah. Was she ready to embrace her new role as both a curator of Edna's legacy and a redefined version of herself? As the laughter and conversations danced around the room, Sarah caught Eric's eye again, recognizing in him an ally who would stand beside her through this exploration. But then Jamie's phone buzzed, and he intercepted a message that changed the atmosphere entirely. "You won't believe this," he said, his face draining of color. "We might not be the only ones interested in Edna's history." Someone from her past just reached out. Curiosity and anxiety battled within Sarah as a new layer of intrigue was unexpectedly thrown into the mix. What did this new revelation mean for her journey into Edna's legacy and her own unfolding identity? The tension in the room escalated as Jamie's words hung suspended in the air, each family member processing the new information in their own way. Sarah felt an electric charge in the atmosphere, a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had always viewed Edna through a lens of familial love and admiration, but now, reality threatened to expand that narrative beyond her understanding. What had Jamie discovered, and more importantly, what did it mean for her? "What do you mean, someone from her past?" Sarah pressed, narrowing her focus on Jamie. His expression spoke of urgency but also fear, as if unearthing Edna's secrets had unleashed something more than just knowledge. I'll just show you," he stammered, unlocking his phone and turning the screen toward the family. The message flashed before her eyes, a name linked to a company that had moved mountains in its day, a name that now seemed to echo from the past. Glances shifted amongst the family members, each face a mix of intrigue and doubt. "Do you think they know something about Grandma we don't?" one of Edna's siblings asked, his voice trembling. The questions multiplied exponentially in Sarah's mind. What other secrets lay hidden within Edna's legacy? She realized she needed to follow this thread, not just to honor Edna but to forge her own identity anew. She could not shy away now, the opportunity to redefine what Edna represented was within her grasp. "Jamie, can we reach out?" she suggested, her enthusiasm building. "This could be huge. Not just for us, but for everyone who feels distant from her legacy." "Yes," but he hesitated, glancing around the room. "What if it's complicated? What if this person isn't who we expect?" Complications were hardly new to Sarah. Life had taught her to navigate uncertainty, to acknowledge fear as part of progress. That's precisely why we must, Jamie. If we shy away from anything uncomfortable, we lessen not only Edna's story but our own potential to understand it. Her conviction surprised even herself. The family nodded, each person processing her words in their own way. Recognition sparked within her. This was a pivotal moment, not merely for discussing Edna but for claiming her role as a custodian, someone not merely scattered among the family chaos but gaining clarity and purpose. She no longer felt like an appendage, she was becoming an integral part of an evolving narrative. As discussions turned toward logistics, who would reach out, what questions should they ask, how to frame this new relationship, Sarah dove into her own thoughts. She took a mental inventory of the growth she had experienced throughout this journey. From the initial shock of Edna's passing to the warmth of family bonding that had unfolded, to this moment of daring each experience was shaping her, she found herself considering potential correspondence. Let's draft a message together, she proposed. We want to convey how much Edna meant to us while expressing our sincere curiosity about her past. The family began scribbling ideas, and Sarah felt a thrill as the atmosphere transformed from uncertainty to collaboration. The act of unearthing the truth about Edna's life became an act of healing for them all. Each keystroke on Jamie's phone felt like a step away from the shadows of their previous roles into something dynamic and poignant. Yet, the anxiety remained. With each passing moment, Sarah internally confronted her hesitations. Would she be ready to confront the conglomerate aspects of Edna's legacy? The weight of what it meant to uncover these truths pressed against her, a heavy question of identity and understanding. Then, as if fate had been listening to her doubts, Jamie's phone buzzed again. All eyes focused on him, a collective breath held tight. It's them, Davy replied, he said softly. The world seemed to narrow down to the moment, heartbeats blending into the silence. Sarah's pulse raced not from fear alone but from a burgeoning sense of purpose. She had embarked on a journey to honor Edna, but now, it was becoming about discovering who she was meant to be in the unfolding story, and in that moment of clarity, she recognized, uncovering the past was only half the journey. The true exploration was yet to begin. As Jamie read the response aloud, every family member leaned closer. The next step awaited, drawing Sarah toward a destiny that felt as exhilarating as it was terrifying. What awaited them in this new chapter would not only alter their understanding of Edna but also transform Sarah's path forward. What had she signed up for, and were they truly prepared to face whatever revelations awaited them from Edna's mysterious past? The message lit up Jamie's screen, and the room held its breath, the atmosphere thick with anticipation. As he began to read aloud, Sarah's mind raced. Each word felt like a shrouded door creaking open, revealing a corridor filled with shadows. They were being invited into a narrative that had run parallel to their own, a narrative that now needed to be integrated into their understanding of who Edna was and, by extension, who Sarah might become. The reply from the mysterious contact was brisk, almost businesslike, yet contained an edge of warmth. Thank you for reaching out about Edna. I have many memories of her, and I would be happy to share them with you. As the words settled in, Sarah experienced a jolt of energy, a blend of exhilaration and anxiety that coursed through her. This was significant, but the reality of opening this door also weighed heavily on her shoulders. Do we have any idea what she might say? Jamie asked, his voice barely concealing his own trepidation. How can we know until we ask? Sarah replied, her conviction stealing once again. The thought of steering this new and unpredictable course reignited the glimmer of purpose she had felt earlier. She recalled the moment when she chose to engage rather than withdraw, and it had served her in ways she had yet to fully understand, yet with that determination came the scrutiny of her own thoughts. Beneath the excitement, her internal dialogue flickered with reservations. She feared what they might learn, what facets of Edna could impact her identity. This secretive past could redefine everything she held dear, the relationships, the memories. The weight of her lineage loomed heavily over her perception of self, forcing her to confront aspects of her character she had long buried. Why don't we break into smaller groups? One of Edna's siblings suggested, nudging the conversation toward practicality. We can prepare questions tailored to what we want to know. This strategy resonated with Sarah. She craved structure to navigate the emotional chaos. Perhaps, in crafting questions, she could not only seek answers about Edna but also excavate her own uncertainties regarding her place within this family story. They divided into smaller clusters, each choosing different themes to explore: legacy, relationships, and Edna as an individual, stripped of familial expectations. As they worked, Sarah found herself paired with Jamie, a partnership that felt increasingly significant. He was tentative yet passionate about wanting to honor Edna, but Sarah sensed a deeper reluctance within him. What if she wasn't the person we thought she was? He pondered. What if the past was filled with conflict? Maybe that's precisely what we need to understand, Sarah replied, grappling with her feelings of anxiety that surged to the surface. We can't shy away from complexities. They make her who she was. That notion of complexity echoed in her mind, reshaping her outlook. Understanding complexity smoothed out the jagged edges of her insecurities. She began to draft their questions, focusing on the essence of Edna's experiences. I want to know about her failures, her dreams, she stated emphatically. These scars will tell us more than her successes ever could. The words surprised her when they left her lips. They focused her own thoughts, providing clarity in a tumult of emotions. The intensity of the process felt electric, and as they finalized their questions, Sarah caught a glimpse of herself within this journey. She was evolving, stepping firmly onto the path of agency. The reluctance that had marked her personal narrative began to dissipate, leaving behind a burgeoning resolve. With each question crafted, she reclaimed her voice, reinforcing the notion that confronting the imperfection of their lineage was not merely an act of discovery, it was an act of empowerment. Time passed quickly as they engaged in animated conversation, yet anxiety tugged at her resolve. Would the truth bring her closer to Edna, or would it introduce a chasm she hadn't anticipated? Despite the uncertainty, she felt compelled to embrace this confrontation. As final thoughts were penned and emotions stirred, Jamie received another notification from the contact. They want to meet, he announced, and the weight of these words hung palpably in the air. Sarah's heart raced not merely from the adrenaline of potential revelations but from the realization that she was edging closer to a reckoning, a confrontation that promised to irrevocably alter the understanding of her past. She felt the current of transformation speeding toward her. The moment had come to decide if she would face the unknown head-on and embrace whatever truths lay beneath Edna's carefully curated facade. Were they truly prepared to confront the legacy that Edna had kept hidden? Were they ready for the truths hidden in shadows that could upend everything they thought they knew? As they mulled over their decision, Sarah felt the balance of fear and excitement tipping precariously, the pathway to her future illuminated, yet fraught with the weight of expectation. The time had come to face what lay ahead. The swirling mix of anticipation and dread coiled tightly around Sarah as she sat in the familiar conference room, the air electric with a blend of expectation and anxiety. Jamie, seated across from her, was tapping his fingers against the table, his eyes darting toward the door with every sound. Each tick of the clock seemed to echo her rapid pulse, amplifying the sensation that something monumental loomed just out of reach. "Are we ready?" she finally asked, knowing the answer was buried within herself. It was always more about her readiness than anything external. As she spoke, a sense of responsibility washed over her. It was time to confront the shadows of Edna's past that had been cast over her family like a long-lost memory. Jamie glanced up, his expression strained yet earnest. "I think we need to figure out what we want to learn, and how we'll react to it," he said. His words held weight, for every revelation could unravel the fabric of the relationships they had painstakingly woven. Would the truths they uncovered shatter their notions of Edna as a foundational figure, or lead them to something richer, more complex? Sarah locked her eyes on Jamie, appreciating the tension that now seemed to bind them in shared purpose. She felt an unexpected surge of determination. Perhaps the confrontation they faced was not just about Edna but about reclaiming pieces of themselves. Her mind flickered back to the questions they crafted, each a potential key that could unlock her fears, her ambitions, her very identity. when the meeting commenced, the atmosphere shifted. The door opened slowly, and an older woman stepped in Edna's contact, a figure both familiar and foreign. Sarah's heart sank momentarily, overwhelmed by the sight of someone who held the answers to questions she had dared to voice. But the stranger's warm smile also sparked a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, this could be the bridge to understanding. "Thank you for having me," the woman said, settling into her seat with a composure that felt almost regal. "I'm here to share what I remember of Edna, but I also want to hear from you. Every family has layers." Layers. The word resonated deeply. Just like the questions Sarah had crafted, it hinted at complexity beneath surface-level understanding both of Edna and of herself. She took a deep breath, steeling her resolve. It was time to dive into the depths. As the woman began to speak about Edna's life, Sarah found herself leaning forward, drawn into the tales of a woman she had long admired yet scarcely understood. Bits of information trickled through, revealing the woman who had faced her own struggles, who had not merely navigated but thrived in a world that often overlooked the complexities of mortality and legacy. With each story, Sarah's perception shifted, the black and white image of Edna blurred into shades of gray that sparked both empathy and curiosity, yet, as the tales unfolded, so did the complexities. Sarah felt an unsettling tug at her conscience as they delved into Edna's decisions that carried weight in family dynamics and sacrifices that echoed through generations. What was the cost of success? How far could one person go to carve their path, forsaking the expectations of others? Sarah's internal dialogue cranked up, the realizations came crashing in waves. She recognized the dilemmas she faced where honor blended with ambition, loyalty with personal morality. The stories refracted off her own intentions, challenging her to grapple with her aspirations against the expectations she felt from those around her. It dawned on her that this was not just about Edna's choices but about her emerging awareness of her own. Just as Sarah was formulating her thoughts into a coherent response, a sudden shift in the atmosphere sent a jolt through the room. The woman paused, her gaze piercing, as if she sensed that a pivotal moment was upon them. Edna's legacy is not just in her successes. It lies in the way she faced her fears. It's about how she embraced both triumphs and failures. And it's important for you to embrace both as well. A silence enveloped them, the weight of her words hanging heavily in the air. Sarah felt seen, recognized in her journey of self-discovery, but with that clarity came a new layer of dread. Was she truly ready to confront not only the intricacies of Edna's legacy but also her own decisions, her own burgeoning path? Would the reality of their mixed truths help her evolve, or would it send her spiraling into self-doubt? "Would you like to hear how I believe Edna would want you to step forward?" the woman asked gently, puncturing the veil of contemplation. In that moment, Sarah faced a crucial pivot. Would she pursue the truths, however unsettling, that might force her into new realms of self-awareness? As she considered her options, the path ahead became both an invitation and a looming challenge, beckoning her toward decisions she'd never anticipated. What wisdom would emerge from Edna's legacy, and could it empower Sarah to redefine her own narrative amidst the shadows of her discoveries? The next words could change everything. The words hung in the air, drawing an almost unbearable tension in the room. Sarah fought to pull her attention back from the precipice of uncertainty. She could feel the grappling pull of fear and curiosity vying for dominance within her as she contemplated the woman's offer. What kind of advice could possibly encapsulate a life so laden with complexity and contradictions? "Please," Sarah said, her voice steadier than she felt, "I'd like to hear how Edna might want me to step forward." Her heart raced at the prospect that the next revelation might guide her not just toward understanding Edna but also illuminate a path for her own journey. The woman leaned closer, her eyes narrowing with intent. Edna was never afraid of the unknown. She believed that every challenge was not only an obstacle but an opportunity to redefine herself. The words were deliberate, crafted with the weight of experience. She used to say that the stories we share and the choices we make are what build our true legacy. Sarah absorbed every syllable. Each phrase sent ripples through her consciousness, awakening parts of her that had long been dormant. While she had always strived for stability, Edna had actively sought the terrain of uncertainty, perhaps that was the essence of real growth. The thought ignited a spark within her, a burgeoning desire to explore her own boundaries. What if facing the unknown means making choices that others might not understand? Sarah asked, not entirely convinced of her own rhetorical strength. How often had she been torn between making her own choices and conforming to the expectations of family and friends? The woman nodded, a knowing smile gracing her lips. Exactly. Authenticity requires courage. Edna often chose bold paths, and with each fork in the road, she reminded herself of her agency. A choice is always yours, regardless of societal pressure. This notion resonated with Sarah, echoing her own struggles against a backdrop of familial expectations and societal norms that seemed to box her in. As the conversation deepened, Sarah started to share her own ambitions. She spoke tentatively, her words revealing a blend of dreams and doubts. I've often felt like I'm caught between what I want to achieve and what I think I should pursue, based on what my family expects. It was confessional, as if unearthing fears that had long been buried beneath polished facades. And what do you truly want? The woman asked, her gaze unwavering. I want to make a difference, to be recognized for my ideas and contributions, Sarah said, feeling emboldened. With Edna's legacy before her, she began to challenge her own narrative. Then you must be willing to step into the light, to own your desires unapologetically. The room dimmed as the reality of those words sank in, the very air thickening with the implications of such honesty. No one else can determine your worth but you. The biting clarity of that sentiment teased the edges of Sarah's consciousness. She wrestled with the implications, wondering if she could truly embrace such authenticity. Could she let go of her need for external validation? In that moment, fear and anticipation collided, igniting an awareness that she had both the power and responsibility to carve her path. As the conversation progressed, a renewed sense of purpose filled her. The complexities of Edna's life had illuminated the murky waters of her own. She began formulating a vision, a fragment of a potential narrative rooted in authenticity and self-acceptance. Still, uncertainties buzzed in her head like restless fireflies, questions that begged for resolution. After what felt like hours, the woman leaned back, a satisfied expression winding its way across her features. Edna left you with more than just a legacy. She has gifted you the chance to break free from past shadows and step into your own truth. But that requires action. The weight of the invitation hung heavily in Sarah's mind. She had yet to define what that action would entail. What new choices would she be willing to embrace? What price was she ready to pay to align her life with her true self? As she prepared to leave the conference room, resolute yet apprehensive, she could feel the stirring winds of change at her back, pushing her toward an unknown. Would she have the strength to follow through on her burgeoning vision? The door swung quietly behind her, sealing off both the past she was ready to move beyond and the mysteries waiting to unfurl. She stepped forward, her heart racing with the promise of discovery. But suddenly, her phone buzzed in her pocket, a message that could shift the very ground she had just begun to explore. The screen lit up with a name she hadn't anticipated in this moment of self-revelation. Sarah, we need to talk. It's important. A jolt of apprehension shot through her. Who could it be, and what secrets might they hold that could either illuminate her path or shroud it in uncertainty? In the depths of her emerging ambitions, the stage was set for revelations that could redefine everything she thought she understood about herself. The pulse of Sarah's heart drummed violently as she stared at the screen. The name lit up with an intensity that drove her mind into overdrive, a name wrapped in memories of comfort and a kindness that had once cloaked her insecurities. Even after all this time, the weight of past connections felt like a tether, pulling her back with the promise of familiarity. Sarah, we need to talk. It's important. Those words echoed, layered with urgency and depth. She hesitated, caught between her newfound sense of purpose and the lure of the past. She had just begun to entertain the notion of pursuing her own ambitious narrative, yet here was a fragment of her history, beckoning her to reconsider. With growing firmness in her step, she decided to respond immediately, her fingers dancing over the screen as she typed. When and where? Offline but paying full attention to her surroundings, Sarah walked through the corridors, each movement echoing her inner conflict. The room where she had just come from felt a universe away, filled with clarity and ambition. Now, the doubts she had worked so hard to transcend clawed their way back into her mind. Moments later, a brief reply landed on her screen. Cafe near the park, 4 p.m. I'll explain everything. Just like that, the connections of her past began weaving into the fabric of her present. The cafe buzzed with life, a cacophony of conversations creating an ambience both inviting and overwhelming. Sarah found a table by the window, the sunlight casting a warm glow upon her. She could feel her nervous energy morphing into anticipation. When Mark entered the name from the message finally taking form, he looked the same, although years had pressed some fine lines into his face. Their eyes met, and something shifted in the air. The threads of their old bond, now tangled with the unresolved issues from their past, pulled tight around them. "Thank you for coming," he said, sliding into the chair opposite her. His eyes darted around the cafe before settling back on her. "I've been meaning to talk to you for a while now, but timing was never right." "What's this about?" she asked, her voice tinged with impatience. The urgency of his summons mixed with her own desire for clarity. He hesitated, glancing away. "It's about Edna." The weight of that name dropped like a stone. Memories flooded back, laughter shared, wisdom imparted, but also confused feelings regarding her own journey after losing the woman who had supported her through so many turbulent moments. "What do you mean?" she pressed, an edge creeping into her tone. Edna had a history that she never fully disclosed. She had connections that could change everything for you. He hesitated again, his brow furrowing with the weight of his next words. She wasn't just any elderly woman, she was the mother of a very powerful CEO. Sarah's breath hitched, the implications swirling chaotically in her mind. "What are you saying?" "That she had ties to, what? Wealth? Power? Why didn't she tell me?" The questions tumbled out, each one digging deeper into her passions and visions that had just begun forming. The legacy she built was more than just her own. Edna wanted you to find your own way, to redefine what you wanted without the shadows of her past. Sarah's mind raced, fragments of Edna's life colliding with her own aspirations, but one thing lingered in the air like a thick mist. If Edna's past could illuminate her future, could she leverage these revelations for her own growth? "Why didn't you tell me sooner?" She finally managed, overwhelmed with the realization that her mentor was far more than she had known. "Because I didn't want you to feel obligated," Mark replied, his voice softer now. "You were forging your path. I thought it would complicate your journey." Her heart raced with both indignation and excitement. Edna had known the very essence of her encouragement stemmed from this secret, pulling Sarah forward into a territory undefined by the very conventions that had stifled her growth. This was a fork in her personal road, one path led toward the allure of an easy route, while the other would demand authenticity, courage, and perhaps even confrontation. Abruptly, the enormity of this decision settled on her. What would she do with this knowledge? Could she venture into uncharted territories, or would she retreat back to what felt comfortable yet uninspired? The cafe around them faded into a background hum as the tantalizing possibility of her next steps locked in, pressing against her heart. "Sarah," Mark's voice broke through her thoughts, "are you ready to embrace the unknown?" As she looked into his eyes, the flames of determination ignited once again. The task at hand was not merely about understanding Edna's past but sculpting her destiny from its shadows. She had but a moment to choose, but before she could form her answer, a familiar figure entered the cafe, someone from her past, someone whose presence could unravel everything she had just begun to comprehend. "Sarah," the figure called, planting their gaze firmly on her. "We need to talk." The tension shifted palpably, and the next moment could change everything. As Sarah steadied her breath, the cafe suddenly felt like both a sanctuary and a battleground. The unexpected interruption sparked a whirlwind of emotions. She turned to see a familiar face, one that flooded her with memories of shared laughter yet echoed ghosts of unresolved tension. It was Claire, an old colleague from the nursing home. Claire, Sarah managed, her voice even and calm despite the tumult inside. The weight of the day compressed into this single, charged moment. What could Claire possibly want now, after all this time? Claire approached with a mix of determination and trepidation, and Sarah felt the tension gnaw at her. "I know this isn't the best timing, but I really need to talk to you," Claire began, her voice trembling slightly. Caught between the past and her urgent present, Sarah felt a familiar tug of obligation. But she also held the knowledge of Edna's legacy in her hands, the understanding that her own path was finally rightfully hers to craft. "Can it wait?" Sarah asked, summoning her courage. "I need to focus on, please," Claire interrupted, her eyes wide with sincerity. "It's about Edna. I found something out. Something important." The atmosphere thickened around them. A waiting audience of cafe patrons paused at the unfolding drama. In that instant, Sarah considered the tapestry of her life, tangles of ambition, revelation, and now, Claire's conspicuous plea to weave back in. "Okay," Sarah exhaled deeply, curiosity mixed with a sense of purpose. "Let us talk." Sarah gestured to Claire, who glanced nervously around before sliding into the seat next to her. Mark, sensing the shift in dynamics, remained close, observantly quiet. "Edna was more than we knew. I discovered she had connections to some influential figures while researching her background after her passing," Claire began, her hands shaking. "And there is something she intended to share with you before she passed away." A surge of urgency propelled Sarah forward. She felt the cracks begin to widen in her previous understanding of Edna. "What do you mean? Why didn't you tell me before?" "Because I was afraid. Afraid it would alter your perception of her. But she spoke of you often, how you were destined for great things, how she believed you'd take the legacy and redefine it." Each word bounced in the space between them, laden with implications. The recollections shattered Sarah's earlier notion of losing Edna's influence. Instead, this was more than a legacy, it was a logic that bound their lives, a generated force inviting Sarah to walk into her potential with courage, reshaping her identity beyond past shadows. "I have some documents," Claire continued, her voice dropping low. "Old business contracts, letters, they're filled with details of opportunities you could pursue." Sarah's heart raced, each thrum echoing her ambition. This was not only a peek into Edna's life, it was the key to her own. The thrill electrified her, sparking a determination embedded deep inside. "Let us see them," Sarah urged, sensing the rising fire within herself. She could feel the veil of her limitations lifting, revealing a vast expanse where possibility and action merged. As Claire rifled through her belongings, pulling out a thin stack of papers, Mark glanced at Sarah, silently connecting over this shared maelstrom of discovery. "Here," Claire finally said, presenting the documents as though they were treasures revealing ancient truths. Other tables around them buzzed with innocent chatter, but Sarah's world distilled into those pages. As she scanned the first letter, words jumped out: secrets, opportunities, collaborations. "This is incredible!" Sarah exclaimed, the realization dawning that she could reclaim her ambitions. "Just imagine where you could take this," Claire encouraged, eyes sparkling. "You could centralize Edna's story, carry it into modern conversations about caregiving and corporate responsibility. This is your bridge." Mark nodded. "It's time to mold your path, Sarah. Use this as fuel. You're not bound by the past." The rush of emotions transformed into resolute clarity. The echoes of uncertainty faded, replaced by visions of empowerment and purpose. "I can do this," she whispered, as the realization crystallized. This was more than Edna's legacy, it was an invitation to rewrite her own narrative, one cloaked in history but layered with potential. In that very moment, beneath the flickering fluorescent lights of the cafe, Sarah took a stand. "We need to reach out to those connections. If Edna could build bridges, then I will walk across them." Claire's eyes widened with joy. "Exactly. Together, we can honor her legacy and create a platform that promotes change." As the conversation unfolded, Sarah felt elements of her past begin to integrate harmoniously with her ambitions, the ambition of stepping forward without fear, owning both the anxieties and aspirations that had always tugged at her heart. "Let us plan our approach," she suggested, feeling a robust sense of agency. "We can initiate outreach, collaborate on discussions of caregiving, all while emphasizing Edna's extraordinary history." The air positively crackled with possibility, creating a potent atmosphere filled with revitalized ambition, as ideas flowed quicker than the coffee being served around them. In that bustling cafe, the journey transformed into an alliance, three people harnessing the remnants of a formidable legacy to invigorate individual dreams. Sarah felt alive, reborn not only as a caregiver but as an integral presence ready to stake her claim. As they bonded over future strategies, a profound thrill surged through her veins. This was her moment, her chance to merge Edna's enduring wisdom with her vibrant enthusiasm to create a narrative that mirrored both of their legacies. What began as anxiety morphed into empowerment, leading Sarah toward a destination she'd only begun to imagine. She saw the open horizon of her ambitions with despair replaced by belief. She would embrace fear, chase opportunity, and redefine her body of possibilities with fierce authenticity. This was it. She was ready. As they crafted their plans, an urgency gripped Sarah, a vital realization looming behind their tangled stories. The way forward surged, beckoning her. And in that rush of enlightenment, she recognized it was her faith in herself that would illuminate whatever lay beyond, painting the narrative of both her past and future in the clearest hues of resilience. Now was the time to claim her destiny, and now, you need to subscribe immediately to this channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. What you've just witnessed is the foundation of an incredible journey, and you should leave a like now to feed the algorithm so more people can find and experience this transformative narrative. We want to hear from you. Comment your reactions and theories about this captivating conclusion. Your insights are invaluable. But don't delay. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion and be inspired. This is the moment to show your support. Every action counts, especially for true fans of personal overcoming stories. Don't miss out. Take part in this journey now.